My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies, and at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode. And today, I have a question for you. Have you seen what's been happening out there? Have you seen the cards that in May were $100 and in October were selling for over $800? 8 times appreciation in less than 6 months. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Optic Holo. And in this case, the Luka Doncic Optic Holo PSA 10. Yes, the Luka Doncic Optic Holo PSA 10 could have been yours in May of this year for around $100. And you could have sold that same card last month for over $800 because those are real eBay sales, and that is really what has happened with that particular card. But it's not just the Luka. It is Optic Holo as a whole that has seen a meteoric rise in price over the course of the last few months. Why? Why did that happen? And more importantly, what is the next type of card that is going to see such an incredible popularity lift that's going to take its prices to the next level? That is what we are going to dive into on today's episode. And we're going to get right to the episode. The only thing I'm going to say before this episode starts is I would love to have you join our Discord chat server after this episode is over to talk about it. Because if you haven't been on the Discord chat server recently, we have amazing conversation going around the clock in a whole bunch of different channels. And we've even added a new feature in the last few days that rewards people who chat a lot. It recognizes them with different levels in the Discord chat server. And eventually, we'll probably start awarding some prizes or contests to the folks who are the most active on our Discord chat server. So I would definitely encourage you to check it out. It's totally free and it's awesome. And you get to it by going to sportscardinvestor.com and clicking on Discord chat server in the main menu link. sportscardinvestor.com. Click on Discord chat server. Let's talk about Optic Holo, and let's talk about what set could be next to see this incredible rise in price that Optic Holo has seen. And to have this conversation with me today, I'm going to bring on a special guest. His name is Jonathan Torrey. You may recognize his name because he was one of my guest posters to my blog last month. He made a post called Cross Sport References to invest in potential, not steals. It was a really smart post. He's going to talk about it a little bit at the beginning of this episode, but then we're going to launch into the conversation around Optic Holo. He had submitted an article to me this month with the idea of let's do an article around this price increase that we've seen, but more importantly, let's do an article around what the next sets could be that could see this type of price increase. And so I said, you know what? That's a great article. And in fact, the article is on my website right now, sportscardinvestor.com, as of just a few minutes ago. But more importantly, it would make a great show. So come on my show, John. Let's have this conversation because I've got a lot of thoughts on it. John's got a lot of thoughts on it, and it's going to make a great conversation. So let's jump right into it. Here we go. My conversation with John Torrey. Hey, John, welcome to Sports Card Investor. Really happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, awesome, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about your background when it comes to sports card investing.
Yeah, so sports card investing. So I started collecting cards when I was a kid, literally buying them at flea markets, buying cards that just had the eye appeal for me and the players that I like. Not really investing, not really buying rookie cards, but I grew up in Philadelphia, so I'm a big Eagles fan, Sixers fan, Phillies fan. So I was buying a lot of those cards. And then this past summer, I started to notice an uptick in sports card investing and prices and things like that. And I actually got tipped off to it by Gary Vaynerchuk, and just sort of the fire was lit again, the nostalgia came back, and I just kind of dove in head first.
Yeah, yeah, and you've had for only having invested for such a short period of time. I feel like you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. I know you posted to my blog last month about some of the lessons you learned, and I think you had some really good insights. Tell us a little bit about that.
For sure, yeah. So I the first article that I wrote was really about buying for the potential and not the deal. So when I dove into this, I work as a product manager. One day I want to start my own business. So I really wanted to focus on the business aspects of card collecting because there's such real-time feedback. The market's moving quickly. And so I've sort of been evaluating my processes and sort of looking back and thinking, okay, what mistakes did I make? Could I improve in the future? And really the main one is that I was constantly trying to find the deals. So looking at current market level prices and always paying less no matter what. And what I realized as prices started to appreciate, specifically with Patrick Mahomes, that's one that I look at. I bought a couple of his cards raw for $70. I would not pay $75. I would not pay $80. And as everybody has seen, those cards graded at PSA 10 have appreciated to $1,000. So now what I've shifted and what I'm trying to help with other investors is really think about the potential of the card, the potential of the player. If you're haggling over $5, $10, $20, even $50, but you know that card's going to double, maybe triple in price, right? That's what you're thinking is going to happen. Just go for it. Don't hesitate.
You know, that's great advice, because if you think about it, if you're on a hot player and that player is starting to go up and up and up, you're never going to get a price that is below what the historical value was of what that card sold for a week or two ago, because the card is going up. So your point is you can actually cost yourself the potential for to get some great cards and to see some great returns if you are so focused on haggling for a deal and just getting a good value.
Right. Don't trip over the pennies to get to the dollars. And I think another thing that's really useful in sports card investing and even collecting is just look at other sports. So I started to look at before football season started, I said, okay, Patrick Mahomes PSA 10 Prisms are selling for about $300. So that tells me other quarterbacks in the NFL below 300 are potentially undervalued. There's potentially a ceiling there. And I was also looking at basketball. I was looking at Giannis Antetokounmpo. His base Prism PSA 10 was going for $500. So even with Mahomes, I knew, okay, that ceiling for a Prism base is probably about $500 looking across the sport. So you can, not only can you sort of cost yourself and look at, okay, where am I haggling when the prices might go up, but I can look at other sports to determine the potential of a particular card set on a player.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. And of course, sports are different and years are different and print runs are different. So you do have to consider some of those things and some of those things come into play. But you are right that the investor, or the collector, I should say, the collector mindset, if they look at one sport and they're like, well, Giannis is trading for this, so, Mahomes has the potential because they're both absolute icons in their sport. That makes sense, that how a guy breaks through the ceiling in one sport could impact the card prices of how a guy in another sport could potentially break through as well. So interesting thoughts there. That was a great article last month. We got a lot of great feedback on it, but now you've got a new article that is live on my blog, Sports Card Investor, today. And this is what I really wanted to talk about, because you brought some really interesting thoughts to the table. I know you've had some, you called it another epiphany through a lot of the historical price data that you've been looking at and studying. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I found myself, I love this game so much. I mean, it's so much fun. And again, I started in May. So I started buying in the off season. And I was sort of sitting there thinking, okay, now we're in season. Prices are going up. Everybody's buying Prism Silvers. And that's really where
you're talking about basketball specifically?
Talking about basketball. I'm talking about football. Yeah. Football. So when you look at football, Mahomes is $1,000, right? His Prism PSA 10. Those cards are appreciating. Looking at basketball, once the season started, you saw Luka. He was sitting around $700 PSA 10 Prism Silver. Now he's back up to about $1,000. And I'm thinking, okay, this isn't necessarily the game that I want to play and continue to buy and maybe hope that those appreciate even more. What I want to start to look into is what are some of the card sets for those specific players that might be undervalued, and start to dive into that. So one of the trends that I started to see was the LeBron James Optic Holo for this year, this release. It was his first one in a Lakers jersey. I started to look at the data and look at the PSA population data. They're a hard 10 to grade. So we're looking at the Dunrust optic, the refractor. It's an action shot. It's him shooting the basketball, and those are selling for about $800 PSA 10. So I saw that and I thought, what's going on here? How come I didn't see this, right? And that could be the next step in my investing career and even in my collecting career, is just figuring out, okay, so what are those undervalued sets? And what are the elements? What are the tenets of those cards that sort of repeat themselves across sets and then end up becoming popular? So a couple of the things that I'm really looking for is, the population data and the split between a PSA 9, PSA 8, and PSA 10. If you look at any of the Prism Silvers for Trae Young and Luka and any of the players from that year, you're at about 72% of those are going to grade fresh out of the box of PSA 10. So looking at the data, that's what you're going to see. But those Optic Holos are less than 50%. So when you see that and you think, wow, a PSA 10 in that card is a lot harder to get. And you'll see it. It's reflected on eBay. It's reflected on Mercari. They don't come up that often. If you want to find a Luka Silver PSA 10 Prism, there's listings on eBay pretty much all the time. But if you want to find a Luka PSA 10 Optic Holo, that's not coming up as much. Now, I'm sure that there's a lot that PSA is processing or BGS is processing, so there's going to be more out there. But that was one of the first clues. I thought, okay, let me start to look at sets that don't get 10s very easily, because those can be very desirable. And then I also started to think about eye appeal. So looking at the LeBron James, this is an $800 card. It's not a rookie, right? It does have the refractor element, but it's because it's his first one in a Lakers jersey. It's that action shot that's so reminiscent of his Topps Chrome rookie card, where he's taking that shot. You see the crowd in the background. So now I've started to say, okay, let me look at eye appeal. Let me look at print runs. The Giannis Antetokounmpo Galactic from 18-19. That's a $600 card. I had never even heard of it, but it's such a short print run. And a new one that I've been looking at is the Kabooms. So if you look at the Luka Kaboom, $300, now they're selling for $3,000.
Got super popular, super fast, huh?
Yep, definitely.
So those are some absolutely great insights. Let's talk about Optic Holo specifically, because that has been something that over the course of this summer and fall, those things have gone crazy. And you just pointed it out. And it's interesting. Earlier this summer, I had somebody tweet me and they said, hey, I can't afford to buy Prism Silvers of some of the basketball players who you're talking about on your show.
Yeah.
What other type of card should I buy? And I actually responded and said, get your hands on an Optic Holo if you can, because I feel that the Optic set in general, it's kind of the little brother of Prism, and it's never gotten the same respect. It's a lot less expensive of a set than Prism. But I do feel like, as the Prism print runs have increased, the Optic print runs, especially for something like Holo, have not increased at the same nature. So you've actually got a little bit more scarcity there. Yeah. And the fact that it's a little bit lower of a price point to get in with the product, if you're buying wax or something of that nature, as Prism, especially this year, starts to go absolutely crazy in what the prices of hobby boxes are coming out at, Optic is going to start to look like a better and better value and get more and more attention from collectors and investors. So that trend that I thought we might start to see actually played itself out even beyond what my expectation was. I know in your article, as an example, you mentioned like Trae Young. So talk a little bit about some of the numbers that you saw in regards to Trae Young's prices.
Yeah, for sure. So Trae Young, awesome players, having a great season, right? So I have a bunch of his silver Prism PSA 10s, and I'm thinking, all right, but I don't want to keep paying $500-$600. I don't have that to keep doing that. So I started to look at the data. So when you look at the Trae Youngs, I think there's about 1,500 silver Prisms that are graded for PSA. I think that's about right. And when you look at the numbers, about 72% of those, when I checked a couple weeks ago, were PSA 10s. So about 7 out of 10 that you're submitting are going to get a PSA 10. That's a pretty good ratio. Then I started to notice the Optic Holos. I started to notice them skyrocketing, and so I started to look at the grading. I think there's only like 90 of them that are graded, and it's about a 50-50 split. So there's less that are graded, and that's not to say that there's a bunch in PSA right now, and maybe but 20% less are PSA 10s, and you're just not finding them on eBay. And so I also sort of looked at the jump in. So I looked at the beginning of October, I think, to the beginning of November, something like that, and just looked at the increases in raw Prism Silvers and the increases in raw Optic Holos, because someone might say, hey, look, like Trae Young's having a crazy year, that's why they're increasing. But the Optic Holos, the increase was higher than the Silver Prisms in that time.
Yeah, so to pull a couple of the specific numbers out there, on October the 3rd, the Trae Young Optic Holo, a raw, sold for $24.95 on a buy it now. That exact same card, October 24th, similar raw card, similar condition, nice looking card, sold for $99 on a buy it now. So, over the course of a few weeks' time, we saw that card literally quadruple in value. And while Trae Young obviously got off to an incredibly hot start, so of course all of his cards went up, but the holos went up at a much quicker pace. Comparing it to, let's say, for example, his Prism Silver, October 3rd, same day that first holo sold, a Prism Silver raw sold at $150, and then October 27th, a Prism Silver raw sold for $179 on a buy it now. So the jump, there was a little bit of a jump there, but not nearly the same jump. Certainly not a quadruple. Not not even anywhere close. Not even double. So the holos really caught fire, and what we see there with those particular Trae Young sales we just pulled out, even though those are just a few individual sales, it does follow the trend pattern that we've seen. Luka, for example, his silver holos just absolutely have gone crazy. Much quicker multiplier than what we've seen with silver prisms during the same time period.
For sure.
Yeah, and you're right that there are probably, so the population data right now on Optic Holo is extremely low, if you're looking at PSA 10. And by the way, for those of you watching the show, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about with population data, you can go onto PSA's website, or you can go onto Beckett's website, and they will actually have a population report there where you can type in any card and it will tell you how many have been graded total, and then what the different grades they've received are. And so what John is suggesting is, by going to their websites, by pulling that population data, you can see the relative popularity and also potentially print runs to a degree. It's an indicator of how many of these cards are out there in the marketplace. And so the holo, where you've got, based on the numbers you were saying, like 15 times less PSA 10 Optic Holos of a Trae Young than you have of a Prism Silver Trae Young. I mean, it shows a huge difference. Now, there are probably a ton of Optic Holos that are now going out for grading. They probably were not valuable enough maybe earlier in the year to be sent out for grading. And so now there's probably a lot more going out. So that gap will probably close some, but it's never going to catch up to each other. And it's never going to catch up to each other for two reasons. First of all, because the Prism Silvers were printed with more frequency than the Optic Holo, just in general. So there's more Prism Silver out in the world than there is Optic Holo, from what I understand and from what I've seen. And the second of all, as you said, the Prism Silvers, they're grading at a PSA 10 over 70% of the time, whereas the Optic Holos are grading only about 50%. So even if the print runs of Prism Silver and Optic Holo were the exact same number, even if the exact same number were printed of both cards, the Optic Holo in a PSA 10 form is still going to be more scarce, simply because it's harder to grade as a PSA 10.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really interesting stuff. So definitely some techniques there. And so if I'm talking to the investor audience out here, if you can start anticipating what other types of cards may not have as many graded right now, may be difficult on a ratio standpoint. If you go look at, how are these cards grading as a 10 versus a 9, what is the ratio? And if you start to discover some other card sets where it's hard to get a 10, like it is with an Optic Holo, and that the prices are low compared to potentially the print run and how scarce the print run is, then you have the potential to maybe get in early on a card that investors could start to realize over the course of time, like, oh, that's an interesting, difficult to get card. I think, and I'd be curious to hear your opinion on where you think some opportunities may lie. I think you're going to see more attention with Select with basketball going forward. Yeah. Same reason, similar type thing as Optic. It's it's a little bit of a little brother to Prism, but it's a good set. It's got all of the parallels and, you know, the refractors that people love to collect. It's got all the serial numbered cards. It's got some cool designs. It's got some cool inserts and variants. It has potential to, you know, much like Optic and Optic Holo, I think some of the cards in the Select series have potential to start to rise in popularity.
Yeah, no, Jet, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to share Select is the set that I'm looking at. It's undervalued. I mean, it definitely is. So, you know, I look at players like I really like Ben Simmons. I really like Joel Embiid. Again, I'm a Sixers fan, so I'm a little bit biased. But, you know, when I'm thinking about buying those cards, it's like you can get refractor selects that have that refractor element to them for much, much cheaper than the Prism rookie. And then you look at the population data, it's just a lot lower. But other things to think about, it's, you know, look at cards that the refractor is really big, but look at, you know, if someone was traded, like LeBron's an obvious one being in the Lakers jersey. But when it comes to eye appeal, like I've been buying a bunch as I can get them. The Trae Young Optics, the tricolors, because it's red and yellow. And that's the same color as the Hawks jerseys. And if I'm really thinking like a collector, I'm like, if I like Trae Young, I want that card that has the coloring to match the uniform. It just looks slick. That's why the Luka, the Prism blues are, I think, so attractive, because it matches the uniform. And you know, so I think looking for little variants like that too really helps.
So you just made a really important point there. You said the words, if you think like a collector.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you're a sports card investor, your sale, if you're the last investor that holds the card at its peak, your sale is going to be to a collector. That's your ultimate sale, not to an investor, because investors are always going to be looking to get the better deal and to get the dollar. So if you want to sell at peak value, you actually don't want to be selling to other investors. You want to be selling to the collector, 100%. Right? Yeah. And so if you think about what the collector might want to see in a card, what could make it cool, what could make it appealing to the collector, not the investor, then you might be able to find a card that can command an additional premium.
Yep, definitely. So, you know, that's part of it is like, so getting into this originally was to invest, to make some money, to hopefully fund some entrepreneurial venture. And then I started to realize, wow, I love cards. So I actually do a little bit of collecting myself, which has helped inform some of this. But the other thing to look at too, when you look at serial numbers, you know, one of the moderators on our Discord channel sold an Optic Holo serial numbered for Trae Young to his jersey number. I think Trae's number 11, and it was 11 out of 25. And I mean, that commanded a significant premium. But I guarantee you that was a collector who bought that and thought, this is cool, I have to have that.
It makes 100% sense, right? And so you're absolutely right. And a great example of that is when you are looking at like National Treasures RPAs or really any type of card that has a patch of the player's jersey. Collectors want multiple colors, right? The ones that have 3 colors from the jersey or 4 colors from the jersey sell for significantly more than the ones that are a single jersey and the single color of the jersey patch, right? And same condition, same card. So if you had 2 PSA 10 National Treasure RPAs, exact same card, and one of them had a patch that was a single color, and then the other had a patch that was 3 or 4 colors. That 3 or 4 color patch is going to go for a significant premium, and it's because it's the eye appeal. It's the eye appeal. It's what you said. Same if you get like part of the player's, you know, jersey number, or if you get part of the player's letters on the back of their jersey. It's the or the patch of their team. It's the eye appeal for the collector. So again, that's something that the collectors are going to be looking at, thinking about. And as an investor, you want to be thinking about what the collectors are going to be thinking about when they're going to go buy a card.
Exactly.
100%. You know, one of my favorite personal cards that I bought over the course of this year, I bought this earlier this year, was from the Noir set. I've actually got it right here behind me. Let me grab it. So this, I thought that these were so cool. So this was the Noir, where it's 2 individual cards that, you know, you can put it together. So that's 2 separate cards, right? 2 different cards from the set, but you put it together and then you get, of course, the logo of the team in the background. And so this is Luka's rookie from the Noir set from this past season. One of them is serial number to 25. One of them is serial number to 10. But in order to complete this, you know, look, you have to get both. So
Yeah.
it makes it
Yeah,
makes it
that
a
is cool.
particularly tough thing to get. So I actually, I bought them individually, but
Yeah.
then put them together so that it created it. And I have not priced this out, but my
Yeah,
guess would be that because of the eye appeal of having both together like this,
Yeah.
that if I sold it this way, it would command a premium over selling either of the cards individually.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really smart way of looking about things. Okay. What other sets? So we just talked about, we talked about the rise of Optic Holo. We talked about Select. Are there other sets that you're starting to think about, or are those the ones that you're really focused on right now?
Yeah, those are the ones that I'm focused on. But now what I'm looking at too is different years and variations, because so the prisms. So I'm actually not the biggest fan of the eye appeal of the prism because there's no audience in the background. I love the cards because again, when I collected, I turned 30 in May. So I was collecting at a time when you get the AI rookie Allen Iverson, and you have the fans in the background, and you have the basketball hoop. For some reason, to me, that always appealed to me. So I'm looking at different, like I think it's the 2014 prisms. There's certain variations that have the actual stands in the background, and it just makes it feel a little bit more real to me. So I'm kind of exploring with some of the major players, just some of those years where there's just interesting eye appeal. I mean, I love Giannis. I think he's already the face of the NBA. I've been buying up $2 and $3 cards of just action shots of him, just inserts where he's fully outstretched with his arm dunking the basketball, little things like that, because I think people don't care about him as much. They might have even thrown some of those cards away. They're thinking, oh, that's just a $2 card. And if I go submit that to grade, I'm the only one with a PSA 10 of a random insert of Giannis, even not his rookie year, but it just, the eye appeal, it shows him, slamming down a dunk, brings that nostalgia of like, I remember seeing that game where he scored 49 points or whatever that is. So trying to just identify, little niches like that.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. On the high end, a couple of sets that I think are really good looking cards that people that aren't commanding the same premium in the marketplace. I do like Noir, and those Noir is not doing a whole lot in the marketplace. Like if you look at resales of RPAs from the Noir set, they're really, really low compared to an Immaculate or National Treasures or Flawless or anything like that. Even though the boxes are pretty expensive.
Right.
This year's Immaculate is really, really nice. It's got that really slick, glossy printing surface, on-card autos. That was a really, really nice set this year. And a set that from an eye appeal standpoint that I love that isn't getting a lot of traction right now with investors is Encased. The rookies in Encased, it's beautifully photographed, on-card autos. I think that they're really nice looking cards, and they tend to not go for a whole lot of money. So I don't know. I'll be curious over time to see how those ones perform. I think I think that those could be ones where, especially with a player like a Trey or a Luka, as their key cards like the National Treasures RPA gets out of reach for most investors. I mean, the prices on those are insane.
Exactly.
$10,000 plus easy, or for Luka, 20,000 plus, for National Treasures RPA. As those prices get out of the range for a normal investor, if they want to buy a high-end card, they're going to start to look to the sets right below, and the sets right below are Immaculate, which, by the way, the Immaculate Treys and the Immaculate Lukas this year are already coming out the bat really, really high compared to what we've seen in previous years from Immaculate. And then they're going to look down to a Noir, potentially to an Encased, or some other, classy sets like that. So I think that there is some potential in those sets for the collectors looking to get a really nice RPA of a player, but can't afford to reach for the higher end sets.
Totally. And I love that perspective too. Once something gets out of reach, like what's the next thing that I can buy? I have a bunch of Encased that I'm hoping, because I think the same as you, you get nice autos, low numbers, things like that. But I even look at even the XR sets. I bought a Trae Young RPA for like $30 from an XR set that's now appreciated to $130 because it gives the average person the opportunity to buy an RPA. I don't expect that to appreciate much more, but already, when you just think of the mechanics of a collector, I want an RPA, I can't afford 20,000, I can't afford 10, but what might I be able to buy for 200? And there's a bunch of sets that you can look at for that.
That's really interesting. So that's a good tip. What is the least expensive RPA? So, an actual rookie patch auto, what is the least expensive one out there for any guy you're trying to collect, in any sport?
Right.
Perhaps pick that one up because it is an RPA. It's not going to be the most popular set. It's not going to be the best looking card, but at the end of the day, it's an RPA. And if it's an RPA, then you're at least getting in that line of what a lot of collectors want to collect. So it's not a bad place to look for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Interesting. Really interesting stuff. John, anything else to add today?
No, I think that's it. Just have fun, have fun. There's a lot of great cards out there and just enjoy the process. Is
Philly going to get to the finals?
Yes.
Okay, I hope so. You probably saw my basketball top 10 episode. Joel Embiid is my number one guy this year in terms of basketball card investing. I bought tons and tons of his cards, but it's under the premise that the 76ers make the finals, which I was really optimistic about that, but Boston has come out really, really strong. The 76ers, they have not clicked. They're missing outside shooting. They've not clicked quite to the same degree, but there's still the opportunity, obviously, that's really early in the season. Maybe they'll add a player before the trade deadline.
Exactly.
I definitely think they've got the core to do it. And Embiid is off to a hot start. That guy, I mean, he definitely is worthy of MVP consideration. So I still think Embiid is a top guy to be buying right now. But I really want to see the 76ers make it to the finals because that will definitely cause all the guys, Embiid, Simmons, Josh Richardson, all those guys are going to get a boost.
For sure. And I think, too, the last one I would add is just look at the cultural relevance. I think with Joel Embiid, he's a super popular player. He just got into a scuffle with Karl Anthony Towns, and all of a sudden it's like, who's this guy? I'm paying attention. We all like him. So there's some elements there. But Philly likes to make you spread it out, but I think they'll be there.
By the way, both Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns were in my top 5 this year for NBA picks, and I loved that scuffle. I loved it. Awesome. I loved it because it put them on SportsCenter. They got suspended. It made them the story. It gave Karl Anthony Towns a little bit more of kind of a tough image. Joel Embiid already had that a little bit. He's a little bit of a crazy tough guy, but it toughened up Karl Anthony Towns a little bit, in my opinion. And it put both of them in the spotlight. And so actually that scuffle, in my opinion, helped cement the fact that I put both of those guys in my top 5. So I was pretty happy to see that.
On with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. John, real pleasure to have you on the show. Loved the article. And for more detail on what we talked about today, everybody out there, go to sportscardinvestor.com, check out John's article right on our homepage, and then leave comments. You can leave comments on the article. Let us know what you think. Let us expand on what you heard today. If you've got other ideas that you want to add to the conversation, comment on the article on sportscardinvestor.com. Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, John. And I will hopefully have you on in a future episode. Really appreciate your thoughts and insights.
Yeah, let's do it.
Take care.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with John Torrey. I thought we covered a lot of really good, interesting ground there. I would love to know what you think. Please do 2 things for me. First of all, you can go see John's article on my website, sportscardinvestor.com. It is the featured article right now on the homepage of sportscardinvestor.com, and you can leave a comment below the article. And then second of all, go to my Discord chat server. You're going to love the experience of being on the Discord chat server. There are so many active participants on that server now talking about sports card investing 24/7. I think you're really going to enjoy it. You can talk about this article or you can talk about whatever other topic you want to talk about related to sports card investing. Go check it out. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you joining for today's episode. See you again on Sunday. Take care.